Well, Lohan. Oh man. Okay. Busy year, busy year, busy year. But anywho, let's just finish it up with Philip K. Dick's interviews, looking through some of them. There was one that I passed by, pretty much this one. However, it looks like it's low quality and 40 minutes. Interpreter edited out? Oh wow. So there's a longer version. Eh, but oh yeah, I also really like this. The Matrix is real. So apparently, I pretty much remember that he mentioned of a place that is very similar to the Matrix, the Matrix from the Matrix movies. So there should the Matrix is real. Philip Dick and Matt's friends corrected aspect ratio. Okay, so this was 4 minutes. It's not like in around an hour and such. So all right, that should be good. Yeah, let me actually play this. Understand more of where he's coming from.
The subject of this speech is a topic which has been discovered recently and which may not exist
1977?
at all. I may be talking about something that does not exist. Therefore, I'm free to say everything or nothing. I, in my stories and novels, often write about counterfeit worlds, semi-real worlds, as well as deranged private worlds, inhabited often by just one person, while meantime the other characters either remain in their own worlds throughout or are somehow drawn into one of the peculiar ones. This theme occurs in the corpus of my 27 years of writing. At no time did I have a theoretical or conscious explanation for my preoccupation with these pluriform pseudo-worlds, but now I think I understand. What I was sensing was the manifold of partially actualized realities lying tangent to what evidently is the most actualized one, the one which the majority of us, by consensus gentium, agree on. Later that day, back home again, but still deeply under the influence of the sodium pentothal, I had a short, acute flash of recovered memory. Then, in mid-March...
All right, so it was under an influence.
Later, the total body of memories, intact and entire, began to return. You are free to believe me or to disbelieve, but please take my word on it that I am not joking. This is very serious, a matter of importance. At that time, I had no idea what I was seeing. It resembled nothing that I had ever heard described. It resembled plasmic energy. It had colors. It moved fast. It collected and then dispersed. But what it was, what he was, I am not sure even now. In other words, it's a common theme in my writing that a dark-haired girl shows up at the door of the...
What is this? Okay, so there's some ambient song. I mean, this is actually just a cut of The Matrix is Real. So, yeah. I already checked through this video here, but hopefully there's not like any unintentional edits to make everything just so suspenseful but quite intrusive. I'd rather listen to the raw video, but I mean it's an hour away. I don't know how much that time. So let me just play it.
Protagonist and tells him that his world is delusional, that there's something false about it.
Yeah, Trinity then mentions on the world is not real. Said Morpheus to a protagonist, something he has experienced. But what I do wonder is something that he interpret in his episode. His hallucination.
Well, this did finally happen to me. I even knew that her hair would be black. I had an actual complete sense of what she would look like and what she would say. She did appear, she was a total stranger, and she did inform me of this fact, that some of my fictional works were in a literal sense true. I wrote out these dreams in novel after novel, story after story. To name two in which this prior ugly present obtained most clearly, I cite The Man in the High Castle and my 1974 novel about the U.S. as a police state called Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said. I'm going to be very candid with you. I wrote both novels based on fragmentary residual memories of such a horrid slave state world. People claim to remember past lives. I claim to remember a different, very different present life. I know of no one who has ever made this claim before, but I rather suspect that my experience is not unique. What perhaps is unique is the fact that I am willing to talk about it. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and
or saying something.
some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu. Perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words, I submit that these impressions are valid and significant. And I will even say this, such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.
It's gonna be something coming up. Okay, something didn't come up. Alrighty, well, that brings into light what is his creative process, where he pretty much had a visual thought of where does the Man in the High Castle, do androids drink electric sheep, and other works come from. Which, no, there's plenty of people who experience it. I mean, I keep on thinking of the book Blackout Speaks, of how he and others experience visions of people's lives. That, that's something other cultures follow, like tribal cultures, some Amazonian tribes, African tribes, European tribes, and clans. That, yeah, I mean, that's something that people do experience. And the fact that he had these types of visions that later inspired his works, it makes complete sense. After all, you could write down what you have endured and experienced in your life, like autobiographies where people are just writing down what they experience or something that they want to actually get out of their chest. When it comes to like daily diaries, like the books about Anne Frank, which is just more like copy and paste in part in the books. But the fact that just having a woman that introduced herself and stuff, yeah, it's pretty wild. But it's possible that he didn't think exactly about The Matrix the movie, but probably The Matrix the movie got inspired by what Philip K. Dick started talking about. Because there was a form of Matrix that existed, a world that is not part of the real world. It's something that people from the real world can enter in, but there's also other elements that are real, fake, things that are just tangible, something that people can actually live off and stuff. Similar to how I was thinking of RoboCop, but Total Recall, when it came to the recall machine, that's something that got inspired. The Matrix got inspired from that. I mean, the whole pill thing in Total Recall, the original, came up by it. And surprisingly, it did not came that scene with the pill, it really didn't show up in the remake of Total Recall around, what is it, the late 2000s, 2010s, not late 2000s, around the early 2010s. Uh, which, yeah, I mean, obviously it could also be because they don't want to make a strict reference of the Matrix. Which, I mean, that's the funny joke about the Matrix. It copies a lot of science fiction, in particular cyberpunk things. That is just unique. But him, yeah, mentioning about what you've been doing stuff. No, it seems like something authors actually experience.
In precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words, I submit that these impressions are valid and significant. And
The validation I keep on thinking about, though, is that reminds me of when people validate them seeing. I forgot. In the Matrix, they have the same exact example of it. Deja vu, when it comes to seeing things in real time, and that it mimics. Making a joke that in the Matrix that's just a glitch that happens, deja vu. But it's something that you know people have actually written down, have experienced, have actually understand how does deja vu work, which that actually makes me want to actually search it up and see if anything comes up. The phenomenon of deja vu. Yeah, I watched a video a long time ago that actually talks. It's not a video about the topic, but it was just a brief. And funny enough, it actually mentions the Matrix. Alrighty. Yeah, deja vu is a false sense of familiarity. Okay, let me actually look through here. Okay, I could just post it here. Yeah, what is deja vu? Okay, yeah, you probably know the feeling, what does it feel like? Okay. A subjectively inappropriate impression of familiarity of a present experience with an undefined past. Now, the fact that it can happen is something people actually wonder. Isn't it just an illusion? Is it something that people have seen in the future or re-experienced in the past? The whole time travel idea about these many phenomenons like deja vu. But other than that, something I really like is that deja vu is a experience some people feel that they experienced before, like going back in time, rather than seeing it as a mundane thing, like driving a car where you're pretty much just driving automatically without giving a second thought. You're not concentrating as it is. It's just a muscle memory that you can actually not concentrate all much and have your mind just set aside while you're doing boring tasks. And for deja vu, someone can have a deja vu when it comes to driving a car, but usually people don't do that because every time people do mundane things, it's not like they always have a deja vu moment. Even though it is a good situation that it can happen, but it doesn't happen regularly, and it doesn't happen much to people. Well, everybody entirely. And I'm not sure if there's one person who always experiences deja vu in a consistent basis. Because that's something people pretty much would point out. They don't experience deja vus as consistent basis. It's not a daily thing. It's something that people try to wrap their brains around it because it does not happen much, even if it should have. So it's interesting. I mean, that's the same thing when it comes to the idea of a phantom limb in devices like phantom phone sensations, where you would find a vibration in your phone in your pants nothing is. You just feel it, and people even said they would see it, even though it's just something that happens regularly and stuff. So, yeah. But yeah, let me look more here. You have two temporal lobes, one on each side of your head, right above your temples. They play an important role in helping you recall words, remember places you've been, recognize people. Okay. Deja vu is not uncommon or inherently healthy to experience deja vu every now and then. Okay, travel a lot, remember your memories, hold liberal beliefs. Is a rare phenomenon in healthy individuals, usually occurring a couple times a year. It has become more frequent or associated with other symptoms. It's important to have addressed. But yeah, anyway, let me actually finish this up. And, look more at Philip K. Dick. But from what they have, the show is that it is something that has started occurring lately, and that people are starting to talk about it more. Even though it's possible that back in hunter and gatherers times for humans, people would have deja vus, but we wouldn't understand where their own plight is coming from. But that's just something I always just think about when it comes to understanding people who live back in the past. How did they really think and stuff? And the only basis we have is only journals, only physical evidence. So it's not like we can understand where everybody is coming from, truly. But I'm optimistic maybe one day. Where that day, I wonder where that puts forth people in history. But I digress. So Philip K. Dick, okay, yeah, he got his other works. I already looked through some of them. There's this one, The Gospel According to Philip K. Dick, animated. Seems like a lot of this is usually people who have an opinion about Philip K. Dick instead of the person himself. Where that interview when they get the Matrix, that's something I can even point out because he is just a person. And that also reminded me of some documentaries about him. But yeah, let's look at biographies, see if there's a thing come up. Philip K. Dick documentary part 1 of 9. Who on earth was Philip K. Dick? Yeah, a person actually explains it. Philip K. Dick with biography, 16 views. Alrighty. Well, that's pretty much it. It seems like it's just people who would talk about Philip K. Dick. PKT Android lost footage, chain conversation. Okay, this is a bit gnarly. But anyway, this documentary, part 1 of 9. I think this is a good place to end things, looking through these collection videos. Since, yeah, there's just not much interviews with the man himself. But when it comes to reading him, now that's just fascinating. I finally was able to watch Elvis with others recently. And I have to say, even though I really appreciate the movie and I'm glad I watched it, glad I finally was able to watch it, I still had the urge that I wanted to see a real documentary, not entirely biopic. Because to an extent, the movie was a decent biopic in understanding the real life Elvis, particularly when it comes to real life footage for the real Elvis and comparison of the one who's playing him as in the movie versus real life him. But having a good documentary that goes through thoroughly in a concise, informative tone and attitude that we're just talking about the person Elvis instead of like the character or the persona of him, like in biopics or um, true detective dramas of people. Like I could always say Jeffrey Dahmer, but no, just other documentaries about serial killers and other people in particular. But yeah, let me start this. Part 1 of 9. Okay, so it looks like it is
Determine the true nature of
Star
these
Lights.
events. Minority Report. Gentlemen, the future circulation of his work will be based on the results of your investigation.
This is like a journey. The Pendulum Truth of Philip Dick. Yeah, we already saw this guy.
And of course, the death of the little girl was certainly had a tremendous effect on Dorothy too.
They had been born about 2 months
Dick,
early,
fifth wife.
and they were both very small. And at the time, Phil was one of the smallest premature babies to survive. But his sister was even smaller, and she simply did not make it.
He thought that
Friend,
she should
co-author of the
live,
novel with P.K. Dick.
and he died.
PKD.
He thought that he was living at her expense.
Dorothy couldn't afford very much milk for them, and Phil was always so hungry that she gave him more than she gave to Phil's sister.
They're
So
building
Phil
a-
felt in some ways that it was his fault that his
was a
sister
story
died.
timeline.
And at the
Like an
same
investigation.
time, he developed a personality in his mind about how she would be if she had lived. And into that personality, he injected all
Like a
sorts
family
of things
tree
from
of
what
sticky
we call
notes.
the feminine side of his personality. He actually drew her picture several times for me. But the pictures, they looked a lot like him. It was like him on a diet.
He felt a connection with what might have been. And since a lot of his writing has to do with the nature of reality, I think that had a very strong effect on it. You know, what might have been.
So,
the changing information which we experience
looks like this
as
person,
world is an
is also
unfolding
related
narrative.
to PKD in real life.
It tells about the death of a woman. This woman who died long ago was one of the
I can
Yeah, I might as
see
well
him in my
skim through this.
boy.
Father lived in San Mateo, and
sometimes, but never got into a good conversation with him.
Berkeley High School.
In the early 1930s, young Philip and his mother Dorothy settled in Berkeley, California. It is said that
Okay, so this is actually going through his young life.
He wrote short stories. See it?
Yeah, I mean, looking through
That
the
was his
time,
word.
I gotta skim through this
Sweats, palpitations,
to get the
shortness
gist
of
of
breath.
things.
They considered it anxiety. Now we probably
Bari
would think more
Sped's
panic
therapist.
disorder, panic attacks.
Wait, is it
Those are different.
PKD's therapist or
Started to
just
write
a person?
science fiction to disassociate.
First discovered it in comic books. Quite quickly, from comic books,
Science fiction escape.
Let me actually
the question
finish
of
this
when
interview.
Phil
To disassociate. That was his word. To escape.
the question of when
Okay, so he was just
Phil,
reading off what he put down.
We're both
But it doesn't seem like, because reading his wiki page about how he go through therapy. Is it the real life person? I'm not sure. It could have been said therapist of PKD, but it's probably not. It could be some random person. But the fact that he's reading off something and not giving his opinion off straight away, it pretty much cut away, but talking through it and vibing his true attitude. Yeah,
And since Philip was mostly
okay, I got
interested in the music,
it's a bit annoying.
after his high school days,
So
he and Hollis had
scroll this a little
good
bit up.
relationship.
All right, this should be good.
Almost a father-son relationship.
because he was so afraid of it. Well, no, he was a good salesman. He liked people. You leave that because that sounded, too good to be true as a story.
In his circle. And he didn't.
Oh, so he actually is talking about wanting his encounter the FBI.
He started at the University of California and didn't stay a full semester. And he was virtually self-taught, later on. And,
He and his wife actually talking about
setting.
part of that
They
life.
had listening booths, which were
Some
very
photos,
private.
and not just him,
We had
but
musical
the
discussions,
life
actually,
he
musical
lived in.
discussions.
Probably what he captured.
But at any rate, it was the music that drew us together. After about-
Showing his, his real life background of everything. Not just, trying to talk about, like, how he just lived in his personal gig in life, what he made and stuff. It seems like quite preachy when you praise a man and just only the man instead of his circumstances or the environment he lives in. But for this case, where you have some real life people who actually are talking about him, the person, not just the author, and also other things that he experienced in that life, is giving credit that, PKD was more of his time than in his life, because, something you could say with the Man of High Castle is that, because it does seem like people who wrote down the wiki page and some of the documentaries and shows, they don't talk about that work much, which I find it so fascinating. The fact that Man of High Castle is one of the few books that it was not explicitly science fiction. It actually also led to him writing more science fiction. But when it came to how he got inspired, what he wrote down and stuff, especially where even his science fiction journey started with Andrew's Dream of Electric Sheep, which later propped him and his legacy in science fiction works. He got inspired by Man of the High Castle because of him learning about how the Nazi Germany ran like things and said, hey, this sounds like a dystopian world where that is something in the end of H.G. Wells' life could have become something he was writing down. One of his lost novels that actually got uncovered from his works that showed a manuscript of a book that does focus on heavy surveillance in a dystopian authoritative state. It's fascinating how they wrote that as a science fiction back in the late 1800s and how they would have imagined it. But yeah,
A year and a half, we got married.
it's something people find
His wife was
a bit
very
trivial.
supportive.
And I think that's the
Marriage
point.
created a perfect
His life was trivial. That's just a person's life when it came to growing up to the end of their life.
Published at some point.
So yeah, going through all this and
That's
stuff.
what he was calling. He wasn't just sure yet.
Very.
I think I would recommend, this. 'Cause it's actually quite long. And I want to move on.
Phil had
Philip Dick documentaries part 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9.
contact with the
But yeah, there's even
Political meetings at Sather Gate, which I always
timestamps of FBI, paranoid writing, and it goes more.
He had this.
I'm also seeing that a lot more people are actually going through his life.
Nancy had a lot.
It looks like most of his past wives. So yeah, that's something I actually will put in my own personal time right after this. So that's something you should just go for yourself. After all, that's the thing I put. But last and not least, let's look at this. This is the android. The Wikipedia actually mentioned about how they designed him to interview the real life person, AKD, which I guess they're gonna put an algorithm on AI online, an AI algorithm that is open online for people to use and try to talk to the real Phil K. Dick like other past people. But that is pretty much it. Oh man, a lot of things to go over, but you know that's the reality. We just move on. But anyhow, aloha.